Yes.
Now we're here. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So, okay, thank you. So, yeah, I wanted to give you some flavor of our world in terms of finance, sustainable finance, large finance institutions, and how they look into it. I mean, we are not at all ignoring what's happening outside. However, we have certain means where we can apply, and therefore, I wanted to show a little bit what we're doing currently already. So this is the carbon certificates and how that might be a lever to unlock also what we discussed yesterday and going forward. And this is just in line what Fred Harteman already said from PIC. All actors have to work together, and we are here to stay. We are here to help. Although I think I'm the stranger in the room, but still, I hope I can give you an insight what we are doing. And apologies at that end, I was not able to be part of the conference yesterday, although it was a fascinating agenda. So thanks for inviting me. The next slide will give you some insights on Munich Re, and this is, bear with me, not some advertisement of or advertising of what we're doing. It's just an example how finance industry is standing there and is able to help. So what we are doing, we are the leading insurer and reinsurer in agriculture and forestry in the risk business, and we are also in that industry leading on the investment side. So we have a huge, like the size of Malta, we have agricultural land owning or in operation worldwide, and we also have a lot of forests, even more. We are here already quite some while, active in 50 countries. That's not saying that we are having agricultural land in 50 countries, don't makes that, but we are here worldwide, and as you already said, we have climate change already on our agenda for quite some while, and we also were part of parts of the IPCC report. We have quite a significant balance sheet and also quite reasonable group results, and we are here to from the insurance side, we pay losses, and they are really significant. So, for example, for the floods in Germany, on our balance sheet, it was 500 million euros. So there is something where we can move the needle. That said, I would like to set the scene in a way that I'd like to frame how we look into that. And I mean, it's all about avoiding, reducing, restoring, and transforming, right? I mean, I took that circle and that triangle out of the Science-Based Target Network for Nature. And this is exactly the momentum we are looking at. And this is the ESG framework, ESG for environmental, social, and governance. That is the big force which goes into the corporate world and also the finance institutions. And I think part of that E is biodiversity, and it's not biodiversity for the diversity of the bio and the nature. We all know that it is the ecosystem services. They come and we are looking into that. And here there are opportunities where we see from the investor side, because Munich Re as an insurer, as all the insurers and reinsurers, they have a huge money to invest, because we have to invest all the insurance premiums. But on the other hand side, we also in the risk business, we do risk assessment. And finally, also if it matches, are taking the risk. So on the biodiversity side, and I don't want to redo all what you might know already, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse how we look into it, right? I mean, we clearly see that biodiversity is in a critical decline, that almost half of the worldwide economic development is highly dependent on nature, right? And this comes for nothing. I mean, that is charge free. And if we don't have that anymore, and this is exactly that mechanism the industry is concerned of, then we have to pay for it artificially, then we have to apply technology whatsoever. And we know that this is in decline. And we also know that from the World Economic Forum, biodiversity is the third biggest threat. And what we also know, out of all these natural ecosystem services they are provided here, there is this carbon sequestration, there is water retention, there is cooling, there is, I mean, all these effects where you, out of the science community, out of all the practitioners, you mentioned earlier, right? And we try to grab that in our world and try to support that. So that said, I'd like to give you some flavor of the carbon certificates market, if you might not know what financial markets are currently up to. Take that as an example. I mean, carbon markets, carbon credit markets, carbon certificate markets, carbon emission markets, I mean, all the same. Take that as an example for potentially also ecosystem, eco credits, eco certificates out of these ecosystem services we mentioned all in that conference. What you see here, and this is definitely what is currently on our agenda, right? I mean, to reach that Paris Agreement, and this is on the carbon side, on the climate change side, our North Star, right? We have a compliance market and we have a voluntary carbon credits market. And they are kind of more or less converging, coming from a different angle. I mean, on the compliance side, we have, for example, the EU emissions trading system. So cap and trade, all these industries who are forced to buy these emission certificates or allowances, they are regulated. There is a price for these emissions, and they are not allowed to emit more CO2 as they buy their certificates. And a certificate has a price, and this is regulated, and the EU is lowering down the amount of emissions that are to be produced. And it's the chemical industry, it's the cement industry, it's the construction. I mean, there are a list of industries where they are forced to buy it. And this was a large effect already because it was regulated. Same is true, for example, for California, right? And then we have a very large momentum currently in the market on the voluntary carbon credits. I mean, you might know that you can buy yourself some carbon offsets if you fly out and like to be net zero. Also in this ESG regulation, in the ESG taxonomy, there is a large pressure to assess what you're doing and then eventually put yourself as a corporation or as a financial institution to net zero. And therefore there is this carbon credit market, which is already there for quite some while, more than 10 years, but it works like the way that there are projects generating emission removals or reductions. They are certified by a certifier. They are a non-for-profit. They generate these carbon credits. And then the polluters or the corporations buy it. And this is quite an efficient mechanism. I mean, this is how financial markets are set up. However, I mean, there are a lot of, I think, issues which we currently face. It's not, I mean, it's not a silver bullet, but definitely there's a lot of money going into that market, and it is forecasted to even grow. And we also see a lot of other areas where this concept can be applied. That said, I just want to give you from this October a flavor where this already trickles down to agriculture. And here we have two examples. The one is out of New Zealand, and this is more or less for the regulated side. So there is the first system discussed for New Zealand to have the first agriculture emissions pricing. I'm not saying it is to blame agriculture, but it is just the way it is that in New Zealand, they also, as a nation, want to pledge for net zero, and their biggest emitters are in percentage agriculture, and so they have to think of something to reduce that. And this is where also agriculture might be part of a cap and trade system. On the other hand side, this Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program is a first step into this eco credit program, because they are currently already onboarded more than 1,000 producers and almost 1 million acres to certify water purification, which is also seen as a natural ecosystem service. And by doing so, they listed a lot of details, what a farmer has to adhere to, how to comply, and then they are paid for it in a certain certification mode. So this is also something also motivated and started by the government at that end, but still it is something in that biodiversity and ecosystem services universe where there is certificates and you can also buy them. So that said, what is Munich Re's offer in that sense, and how to contribute here? And again, you see here the triangle, and this is, I mean, we clearly see that we have a role to play in supporting that transformation. We are at the forefront of creating meaningful risk and finance products. And in the workshop to come, I can elaborate more on that one, what we already have on our shelves, what might be amended or tailored to certain projects or to certain other requirements. And this is exactly why I also engaged here in that conference, is we can't do it alone. I mean, we have two levers, which is on the investment as well as on the risk-taking side. However, we are not the ones who can prescribe what to do to have living landscapes, or what it is to do to cool certain areas, right? So we have to partner up with experts, and this might be science, this might be practitioners, this might be other corporates who have a role to play here. And I think also a colleague here of ours, Marcel, is a very meaningful expert here, and a stakeholder who can also jump in here to share his view on his role to play and what might be the expert role here. So Marcel, if you'd like to speak up.
Oh, that comes by surprise. I have to give him the rights for speaking up.
Okay.
Just one moment. Marcel. Yes, now you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Can you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what I will do in the workshop is that, from my point, so I'm also coming from the institutional world, from the background of institutional money pension fund, and what we are doing is telling the story of biodiversity to those investors, because they have a strong, difficult case to integrate biodiversity in the investment policy. So what we have done, made different stories for different stakeholders. So a story about how to reduce the assets at risk by creating a free climate insurance policy for institutional investors. A story about how to minimizing your regret for politicians. A story for companies how to integrate biodiversity in a cool way in your product, so that you lower the risk in your value chain and increase the yield of your value chain. But also storytelling for the people in the street, and especially also for children. What is the cooling capacity of regenerating the landscape? So it's about storytelling, and I would love to give in the workshop a little bit more details about how to address this story to institutional investors and politicians, because that's very important, so that they can really integrate it in the investment policy and in the climate policy. So just in a nutshell, that we're working on the storytelling. And one great element is the option of creating a free climate insurance policy, when you see the different contributions of different carbon credits. And so a carbon credit that restores nature has much more potential, much more value than a carbon credit that is created by renewable energy, because the green water carbon credit also has the cooling capacity. So when you address that, then you tell that to the investor, then you can tell them you can reduce your assets at risk. But that will be more later in the workshop. In slightly more detail, I can show you how you can create that free climate insurance policy.
Yeah. So thank you. So thank you. I think that is definitely of great value. And I mean, just to give a flavor, I mean, carboncredits.com listed 170 different carbon credits, right? I mean, there is, and part of them are nature-based, but others are technology-based or energy-based, or the famous cook stoves. I mean, there's a lot which is listed there. And clearly, this is only focused on the carbon side, and there is nothing yet included of other nature-based solutions, such as cooling. And I would like to more or less end here and go back to you, Stefan, to go on with the next agenda point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Alexa. Yeah, I consider this as super important. As you said, I mean, we're different stakeholders, and me working in the field normally of regenerative agriculture. I mean, there are the farmers, there's the industry, there's the consumers, there's the schools, and much more, and here as well. And I consider the companies as being a major potential player. I mean, they are already playing in the field, but not necessarily for the positive. So there is the possibility for changing into positive direction. And what I learned from you is the interest in learning about what potentials lie there, and how can we kind of frame a certificate which goes beyond CO2, which I consider as so to say difficult, at least, to implement, or it has negative consequences as well. So I welcome very much your interest and really your willingness to really dig into this and find how for Munich Re the solution can be to really support regeneration.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we'd like to explore in the workshop, is what would a player like ours need to go further and get going. Yeah, thank you.